Hello and welcome back to the channel. In today's video we're going to be rebuilding all the suspension on the M5 revival project. So this is everything for the rear end. I've had all the subframe shot blasted, powder coated, swing arms powder coated. The hubs are just shot blasted and I painted them myself. I didn't want to risk powder coating because all the surfaces I've masked up. It's just a lot better to be in control of that myself. I have painted the arms as well, masked up around the bearings, just try and keep them clean. Bits that we're going to be replacing, we've got new wheel bearings, lower ball joints for there, and then we're going to be changing the swing arm bushes, which are normally you're not able to change them, but these are using some from an X5, so I can go into that in a bit more detail when we get onto that bit. Got new subframe bushes, diff bush, going to go for a Powerflex one on the front one, and then just OE sort of length order in the back. And then yeah, everything is going to be new on the rear axle, so yeah, it should be nice and tight and new. So what I'll probably start with the big things first. Let's get the subframe sorted. So we'll get subframe bushes in, rear diff mount and front diff mount. Start with them and then we'll move on to the rest of the individual pieces after. So stay tuned and we'll get cracking. Okay, so I'm going to be using a laser tool for doing the subframe bushes. Comes with that pair there, it's for removing old ones, and you've got these two pieces here for installing new ones. I managed to get a deal on it. It was about £100, quite expensive for a tool, but I've used it a couple of times now and it's so much better than the cheap one that I bought off eBay. It's just probably made by like an engineering firm. I've done a couple of cars with it. It does work. It's split on the welds a couple of times, so I've had to weld them back up, but yeah, it does work. But if you've got the budget for it, I definitely recommend this laser tool. It's a lot better. And then yeah, you can just use that, grease the threads up and then just pull them into there. So I'll make a start on the first. Okay, so all I've done there is just push the subframe bush in a little bit by hand, just to get him lined up front to back with the arrows. And then using our bush tool, we've got the lower section, feeds in the bottom. Sits like that. And then we've got our cap. That's our first subframe bush in now. As you saw, it took quite a while, but with the tool it just pulls it down. I'll do that 3 more times now and then we'll look at doing the diff bushes. Okay, so I've got all 4 subframe bushes pressed in now. On the other 3 I put a bit of WD-40 around the bush and it made it 10 times easier to pull in. Next on the list is the diff bushings. They've got an elongated hole, and that's to give it a bit of left to right movement. So basically they go in there like so. What I'm going to use is just a combination of some flat bits of metal to pull it in, so you just have to go flush with the surface, and some threaded bar, and then put something this side as well. So I'll get that pulled in now. Okay, so that's both rear diffing bushes installed. Just used a bit of threaded rod, some of the plates from the subframe bush tool. Next job is the diff nose. So for that I've gone with a Powerflex purple series, so the softer one of the Powerflex make. The reasoning for that is I've not had the front nose reinforced where they can break, and I think it's due to when the standard bushes wear, it allows a lot more movement in the front nose of the diff, and it can obviously hit up and down, and that's what causes them to break. So what I'm going for is a PowerFlex bush, which is really easy to install. It's just a case of squeeze it in, simple as that. And then when it comes to fitting it, I'll put the sleeve in, and then there's just a washer and a bit of grease to go on there, so that's nice and easy. So that's a subframe done. So what I'll look at now is I'll look at doing the swing arm bushes, and I'll talk a bit about what bushes I'm using for them, because normally you have to replace the whole swing arm, so we'll look into that next. Okay, so here's two original swing arms. Depending on the build date of your car, some have a ball joint on the rear bush plate, bush mounting point, or they have an actual traditional bush. The ball joint, they're not available at all. No one, I can't seem to find like a Lemford or equivalent. I've searched the numbers that are on the actual ball joint themselves. It's a bit like a monoball, which is a conversion people do on these. But ordering an X5 part gives you the identical bushing as what's in there. On an M5, the difference with the swing arms is basically, and the subframes, is that the rear camber bolt is M14, whereas on a normal 5 series they're M12. So that's a difference for the M5 subframe and for the swing arms. So for the rear arm, we've got the bush sorted for that. For the front, I wanted to try and get Lemford stuff, so it's equivalent to the BM quality. And for that, those bushes aren't available at all. So what I've ended up getting is some from an X5. They're shaped slightly different, but overall diameter, like thickness wise, they're the same. So they should go straight in the swing arm. The way the bushes are designed with these, you have to actually squeeze them together, so use like Jubilee clips to compress them before you press them in. The only issue with the X5 ones is they're designed for an M12 bolt on the front mounting point, whereas on an E39 it's for an M10. So what I did, I got a piece length of tube, M12, it should be 12mm diameter, 1mm wall thickness, so that will reduce us down. It was slightly oversized, so I just had to have some turned down, and then that will just go in there. And then I've got one in there already, so you can see the difference there. That one's got the insert in and that one hasn't. That's just so I can use the X5 bushings without having to drill a hole. You could drill a hole in the subframe to M12 and run X5 bolts, but if you ever have an issue, at least this way you just got to get a normal M5 swing arm. If one ever gets damaged or something, you can put that straight in, it'll be a bolt-on affair. So yeah, that's what I'm doing for there. They're the part numbers for the Lemford bushings. So you got the rear ones and then you've got the front ones. They're all listed for X5s. Okay, when it comes to installing the swing arm bushes, because they're a split bush, you need to compress it. You can get proper tools for this, but Jubilee clip will work. Basically, I've compressed that end more than that end to sort of shape it better, and then the join line just goes vertically down there. So what I'll do is I'll set up some clamps and then get it starting to pull in, and then just move the Jubilee clip up as it goes. So I've added a second Jubilee clip further up to help compress it, and then it's just going to be a case of actually winding it in. Okay, so slight change of plan. Instead of just pulling it in with a bar, it seemed to just sort of splay open, so I've ended up with a second Jubilee clip on here and then just doing it on the press. Seems to be going in a lot better. So as you can see, time to move the Jubilee clips. Okay, so that's the rear bush installed. So what I'll do is I'll do a similar sort of thing with the front bush. For that one, yeah, I've got to compress it a lot more, looking at the size of the opening there. So I'll get some Jubilee clips on there and start getting them pressed in. Okay, so what I've done is I started pulling it in just to get it started. And then what I'll do is I'll go back over to the press and do it on the press, because they just seem to go in a lot easier with the press. Okay, so that's both bushes replaced in the swing arms, and then we'll just use a reducing sleeve in the top one to change it down to M10. So it's just a case of fitting one of them in there. Does just drop through, but once it's on the arm it's fine because it's clamped on the faces anyway. It's more just to reduce the bolt hole size. So yeah, that's that done there. So I'll get the other one sorted out as well, and then this will be done, and then we can move on to the next step, which will be the rear hubs. Okay, first thing to go on the hubs is the lower ball joint. So this is a tool I bought off eBay, oh god, 10 plus years ago now. Probably done 10 to 15 ball joints with it now, and it's got a cutout on the side, so when you remove them it can sit round the hub like that, and then you have a smaller cup which you use for pulling through, and then you have that cup there which goes on there for pulling it in. And then it's just a case of pulling it home, and then you fit the circlip. That locking ring goes round into that groove there once it's fitted. So what I'll do is I'll get it set up, and I'll probably do it on the press again because it's just easier than having to wind it by hand. Okay, so now you can see it's just easy to press it. After the ball joint's installed, just make sure it's pressed all the way back. There's a locking ring to install, so it's just like a big circlip really. There's just a groove that it sits in. So I've got the other ball joint pressed in as well, so I'll get both circlips in and then we can move on to the next step. Next thing to install is going to be the integral links, which basically just go between there and there. I'll just get it all loosely bolted up for now, and then it'll all be torqued on the car when it's under its own weight. So yeah, I'd just like to copper slip a few bits, just with it being dissimilar metals. It just in the future hopefully won't pull the threads. I've run the tap through a lot of them anyway, just to clean any crud out. I've gone for TRW, which is a ZF brand, so it's probably made in the same factory as Lemforder. And then on all four wishbones, well, arms, I've gone TRW, and then everything else is pretty much Lemforder. See, hopefully the quality should be good, with a lot of it being original stuff with part numbers actually ground off. You can see that on the subframe bushes and the diff bushes that they are the genuine BM ones, because you can see where the part number's just been ground off. This piece we're going to be putting on is a brake backing shield. These are actually off an E60 545, 550 with the 345mm rear brake package. Standard E39 M5s are 325 rears, so we are going slightly bigger disc on the back. So these are alley shields versus the steel ones on an E39. But what it has is it has this extra ring which is steel, which has your handbrake locating pins on there. I've already, before I got it powder coated, modified all around there. So yeah, first thing I'm going to do is just apply a bit of Loctite to the bolts, because if I bought new replacement bolts, they come with a bit of blue thread lock on there. That's one. brake backing shield installed, and now we can look at getting a wheel bearing fitted. So this is obviously a rear drive flange. I've just wire wheeled it up. It's come up quite good. I don't want to paint it or anything like that because I don't want to risk the brake disc not sitting flat. So I'm just going to leave it raw. That's as they were from the factory, so it should be good for a number of years. I've obviously removed the old bearing. So what I did was I used a big puller to pull the outer half off, and then it leaves you a collar around the bottom. And what I did was I cut the collar and then just hit it with a chisel. It will split, and then you can just take it off. So it is just get a case of getting your new bearing, pushing it straight on. So I'll head over to the press and do that now. With our new bearing installed, it's just a case of getting it bolted on to the hub. Easiest way, flip it upside down and just drop it on the top. The new bolts come with thread lock on there already, and for now I'm just going to tighten them up to 20-30 Newton meters, and then I'll torque them up properly once it's all assembled, where you can hold it all, because otherwise it just wants to turn round. Okay, so that's one corner assembled, and I'll do the same on the other side now. Okay, so first thing to go on to the subframe now is a swing arm. We've got our little reducing bushing in the front bush there, and nice and simply just put the bolts in. I've copper slipped them all up because I don't want these to seize, because when you try and come to do wheel alignment adjustments in the future, I don't want them seized, which I've had in the past, and they're a pain in the backside to get out. So yeah, nice and simple. Bolts in, a little locking tab in there. Okay, so what I did there was just get them tightened up so they've nipped up, but then when you move the swing arm it still allows rotation in the bush for when we torque it all under load. So I'll get the other side on now, flip him over, and we can start looking at getting the hubs and wishbones off. While I've got it in this position, I'm going to install the rear drop links. So I've got OEM length order again, so it's just going to be easier to get to them there. So I'll get these installed now. Okay, so next job is going to be our hub. Drop links in, so it's just easy to do that now. And the hub, we'll just get it sat in at the bottom of the swing arm first of all. So that's our hub loosely in position, and what I'm going to do now is get one of the upper arms in just to hold it all in place, and then I'll tighten it all up after. So a bit of copper slip on there. Okay, so that's our rear upper wishbone in, and then the front uppers, they obviously have your rear toe adjustment bolts in there. I've just replaced these because, yeah, you've seen that I had to cut one off of the old ones. Putting so much copper slip on might seem a bit excessive, but yeah, if you've seen how the old one was seized in there. It's just to try and stop that, and ease of adjustment in the future really. So I can pop the rear wheel on me. Okay, so that's this corner together as much as I can. Everything's just loose, so you've got real easy articulation in all the joints. I'm going to order up some of the proper nuts from BM, because the ones that come with the arms, they don't have the integral washer built into them, so I'm going to get the proper ones for there, just so it's right. And then what I'll do is I'll get the other side built up the same, and then yeah, we're about worked up on this now. There's just a anti-roll bar to go on, so I'm just waiting on some bits for that. So yeah, I'll get the other side built up and then this is more or less done. So working back on the rear axle, I've just installed an eye-back anti-roll bar. So this is 18mm thick versus the factory M5 one, which is 16.5. And then the next thing I'm going to be installing is the drive shafts. I've torqued the wheel bearing bolts down, so it's just a case of sliding the shaft in, then we can look at getting our nicely refurbished diff in. So that's the rear axle completely back together now. Really pleased with how it's gone back together. Looks really good. There's a few little bits, handbrake cables and obviously all the brakes to build up, but I'll do that when it's on the car. So what I'll do is I'll have a look at getting this back in now, and then yeah, it's going to get closer to being a roller again.